The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
When did they issue a warrant?
So what happened is we have to take you to our warrant room for that information to get entered, and then after that gets entered, before we can take you to the jail, to the local jail.
Okay, because I didn't know there was a warrant. How would I know that?
The countdown is on for Mama Donna Adelson. Opening statements expected later today. So how will trial number 5 play out in court? And the man accused of murdering 4 family members in Tennessee is speaking out for the first time publicly. The reporter who got Austin Drummond's prison interview is joining us live this morning. Plus, we're digging deeper into the murder suspect's gang history and his alleged informant past. We have a gang expert here in the studio to help us break down this suspect story. Also coming up this hour, surviving victims taking the stand in the speeding trooper homicide trial. So will their emotional testimony tip the scales of justice? It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. We got a tremendous show planned for you. I'm so excited to get it started. Let's do it as we always do. Grab that cup of coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. Justice should never be swayed by spectacle. Those wise words belong to LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman. He made this profound statement regarding the Menendez brothers case. As today, convicted killer Eric Menendez goes before the California Parole Board. And then tomorrow, his convicted killer brother, Lyle Menendez, will have his parole hearing. And this morning, I just want to applaud the DA for tuning out Menendez mania in the court of public opinion and focusing on what truly matters. DA Hochman says that what guides him and the decisions that are made in his office are the evidence, the facts, and the application of the law. In other words, he's properly upholding his oath as a minister of justice. You follow the facts, you follow the evidence, you follow the law. You don't succumb to public pressure just because a case has garnered lots of eyes and attention. I learned early on as a prosecutor that you do what's right. It doesn't matter if you have millions of eyes on you or no eyes on you. You do what's right and you do what's just, because that's your job as a prosecutor. You're more than just an advocate. Prosecutors are held to a higher standard than other attorneys. They have to follow extra special ethical rules. So kudos to you, DA Hochman, for not caving into public pressure when it goes against what you have found in following the rules, the facts, and the law, in seeking justice for homicide victims Jose and Kitty Menendez. That is my opening statement. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Can you answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, was you telling Lyle what?
My dad had been molesting me.
There was no reason to lie. Clearly, he was coming to me, wanted me to do something about it.
The case I was just talking about in California, Eric Menendez going before the parole board at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. Court TV is on the ground there. We'll be reporting the very latest for you throughout the day. In Georgia, we've got the state's case expected to rest today in the killer's daughter murder trial with defendant Christopher Wolfenbarger as the accused. Court's going to start back up at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. And also in Georgia, we've got testimony continuing at 9 a.m. in the speeding trooper homicide trial. This one is for defendant A.J. Scott. Right now, we turn to our top story for you. It is a huge day in Florida as opening statements are expected in the murder trial for Mama Donna Adelson. Court's going to start up at 10:30 a.m. At that time, the attorneys will argue any final motions, and then prospective jurors will be returning to do some more questioning. The judge thinks they'll be able to get that jury seated by late this morning and then begin the opening statements after the lunch break. Now, Donna Adelson is the 5th person being tried in connection to the murder for hire plot for Dan Markel, the Florida State University law professor that was married to her daughter, Wendy. And look at these 4 people. These 4 people here have already been convicted. And Look at mugshot on the left there. That's Charlie, Donna's son, the most recent conviction. Court TV's Julia Janae has a closer look at Donna's investigation.
Donna Adelson is the 5th person to face charges for the death of her estranged son-in-law, Dan Markel. She was arrested in November of 2023, a week after her son Charlie was convicted. She and her husband Harvey were boarding a one-way flight to Vietnam, which has no extradition treaty with the U.S.
So, Ms. Adelson, at this time, you're being held with no bond on count 1.
She's charged with murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and solicitation to commit murder.
You'd have no contact with the victim's family. You'd have no contact with any co-defendants and no contact with any witnesses that are listed in the probable cause affidavit. Do you understand those conditions?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, so Donna Adelson is defendant number 5 to go in this case. Kind of an unusual prosecution that we've talked about before. And now we've got a new debate going on in our Court TV newsroom. Whose side of the case gets better with trial number 5? Is it the state side or the defense side? Let's bring in our legal eagles to talk about this. It's Thursday, so we always welcome attorneys John Phillips and Michael J. Brown. So pleased to have you both here. So I want you both to weigh in on this debate. Whose side gets better and why? John Phillips, would you start us off, please?
I'm glad I get to go first because, you know, Michael's going to steal the show in like 2 minutes. You know, it's always the defense, you know, that gets an advantage from hearing the other cases. You know, the state knows what they know. They have access to the law enforcement. They have access to the, you know, the evidence that they feel proves their case. And the defense kind of sits back and guesses sometimes about what witnesses are going to say. There's not as many depositions and discovery in a criminal case as there is in a civil case. We take deposition after deposition after deposition. And so, you know, typically the defense attorneys are sitting there digesting, you know, with their arms crossed, all of this information to be able to assemble their defense.
John Phillips, appreciate that. Okay, Michael J. Brown, same question to you. Whose side gets better in your view?
Good morning, everybody. John went first. He took the winds out of my sail. But let me say this, Julie. So I'll take the other position. What John said is spot on in the sense that the defense attorneys love prior inconsistent statements, prior testimony, and you have trial after trial after trial, and they're going to be able to use that. But on the prosecution standpoint, Julie, what you have is you have witnesses who testified. You're going to refine their testimony, perfect their testimony, and the prosecution has the benefit of deciding maybe we won't choose to use a witness during this go-around because, of course, they've spoken to past juries. They've talked about what they liked and what they didn't like. They had colleagues sitting in the audience and talking to them about their impression of how witnesses appeared. So, you know, it's like a Broadway show. Certainly the opener is never going to be good as maybe the 5th show or the 10th show. So now you're on trial 5, and I think the prosecution will be able to refine and perfect their presentation to the jury.
I really appreciate your remarks, Michael and John, both of you. So you can see why we have the debate going on in the newsroom. You know, arguably either side here who's got the advantage. So let me refine the question and ask you, John, the state's team is the same, where the defense team, as you know, okay, we've got different defense attorneys going on here, and we even know that Mama Donna had wanted the same attorney that was representing her son, Charlie, the conflict that we could all see miles away, but that attorney hung in there for a while until, you know, the court, forced the recusal, and now we have a new set of attorneys. Tell me, do you think that provides an advantage to the state and that they've got the same players going back in trial after trial?
In the day of AI, I did a video on this last week. You know, in the day of AI, the human brain as a lawyer is still dominant, you know, because we're digesting information. We're dealing with emotions. We know where the trigger points are. And, you know, AI can't get that right. You know, we're not going to be replaced yet. Maybe some case managers, maybe some paralegals. But, you know, the experience, the wisdom, dealing with the personality that you have to deal with, particularly in this case, you know, you generally want the same brain that's dealt with it and gotten that big W, the wisdom.
Yes, yes. John, thank you. Thank you for saying that about the AI, because it drives me crazy. You know, it's good for what it's good for, but, you know, there's no substitute for the real people, the real deal attorneys that you both are. So let's take a look at a clip here. This was interesting. At the last hearing, Mama Donna's attorney made a comment that when she testifies, she will say such and such. It has to do with her being fearful of the Latin Kings gang members.
That being said, this ultimately goes to your client's state of mind and who is going to establish how she knows the difference between, forgive the pun, the garden variety gang member and a specific gang member.
I think between her testimony and anticipated testimony of Charlie Adelson.
Her testimony and the anticipated testimony of Charlie. Okay, so we'll take these in turn. Let's talk about her. Michael J. Brown, what do you think about the idea of her getting on the stand? Can this potentially help her?
Well, it can, Julie. It all depends on how she comes across. I just hope that they don't commit to that in their opening statement. I never commit to that in my opening statement. I like to see how things go. As we've talked about, you never know what happens during the course of a trial. And once you put that in front of a jury, you kind of commit to that and you have to go forward with it. She comes across potentially as a sympathetic figure. I don't know. She's going to have to answer certain things, especially that flight to Vietnam or anticipated flight to Vietnam. And she may have a great explanation. I don't know. But I think she may have to testify in order to save herself. But again, that's something that they'll have to decide after the prosecution rests.
Right. Great advice, Michael. Thank you. John Phillips, I have a clip for you. This was back when Charlie testified in his own defense. Let's take a look.
So I wanted my mom to know what happened, but I also didn't want her saying anything to anybody. So I told my mom, I said, listen, I'm going to tell you something, but I never want to talk about it again. I never want you to talk to me about it on the phone. Don't talk about it anywhere. And please, whatever you do not say anything to Dad. Do not say anything to Wendy. Do not try to make me go to the police, because I'm not going. You got to promise me all that, and then I'll tell you.
And what did you tell your mom?
I told her that the night of the 18th, I got extorted for $250,000.
The Adelsons say it was extortion, as you know, John Phillips. Okay, Charlie's coming back. How bad do you think this is going to go between him and Mama Donna, or isn't it? Is he going to be a supportive, wonderful witness for his mother?
This is where Michael was, you know, very wise in saying what he said in the first go-around about the prosecution having a bit of an advantage, because they know the facts. They've dealt with it. They've dissected it. They know you get to bite this apple quite a few times when he gets to testifying. I've never in my life heard somebody call something $350,000, by the way. I've heard a half, heard a quarter, right. But $350,000 is a weird way to say it. And you know, what got me also during that clip is how many people are in that courtroom. It's like an hour and a half down the road in Tallahassee. And there's a lot of interest locally, which is why jury selection is taking, you know, some time here. But it's just, yeah, I mean, that's your case. You know, you just pit these guys against each other.
You're so right. I still am in the camp that thinks there are going to be more Adelsons put on trial after Mama Donna, but we'll see. You guys are the best. John Phillips, Michael J. Brown, go get some more coffee. We'll see you guys in a bit. We're going to hit a break. When we come back, here's what's next.
I was afraid because I knew bad things happened. And I was afraid that because I was an informant, things would go wrong. Things would happen to me.
Murder suspect Austin Drummond speaking out for the first time after his capture. Up next, the reporter who got the exclusive interview at his station is joining us live next. And the surviving victims taking the stand in the trial of Trooper, well, I should say former Trooper, now Mayor A.J. Scott. So will their testimony tip the scales of justice in the speeding Trooper homicide case? Be right back.
The Court TV podcast will return.
He thought he could outrun us, but he was wrong. That's because together we cannot be stopped. Law enforcement from every level and the people who called West Tennessee home did our parts. We worked long hours, neighbors stayed vigilant, agencies donated reward money, and someone saw something. They saw something out of the ordinary this morning and did what he was supposed to do. Because of that action, Drummond is in custody.
The man accused of murdering 4 family members and abandoning an infant in Tennessee is speaking publicly from behind bars. Defendant Autumn Drummond was arrested earlier this month after a week-long manhunt which grabbed national headlines and set many in the state on edge. Well, soon after he was taken into custody, Drummond was denied bond at his first court appearance, where prosecutors also announced their intent to seek the death penalty. Now, the accused killer is claiming that he was working as an informant. Scripps News Nashville's Nick Barris has more on Autumn Drummond's jail interview.
Autumn Drummond is locked up without bond in the Obion County Jail. He's charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. A source gave him my cell phone number, and he called us to talk about his case.
I'm innocent of what I'm charged with, yes, sir. I'm not an innocent man, but I'm not guilty of what they charged me with.
Of course, you would expect a man potentially facing the death penalty to say that.
I often take a polygraph.
The 28-year-old Drummond admits to a long criminal record dating back to his teenage years and was a one-time member of the Vice Lords gang. But he says he did not kill Adriana Williams, Braden Williams, Matthew James Wilson, or Courtney Rose, whose bodies were all found in Lake County on July 29th.
I had no reason to hurt these people. They were my girlfriend's family who had became my family. I took Adriana to the hospital to have her baby. I helped teach Braden to drive. Matthew was like a little brother to me, man.
Drummond was on the run for several days after the murders. Locals in Northwest Tennessee feared a killer was on the loose, and it made national headlines. If Drummond didn't murder the 4 victims, then why did he run?
I did not handle the situation right by running, but I was afraid.
And here's why. Drummond says after another arrest earlier this year, he cut a deal with the Lake County District Attorney, FBI, and ATF to work as a confidential informant.
During my time working for them, I helped uncover drug dealers selling multiple kilos at a time of cocaine, also drug traffickers delivering pounds of meth. We identified dirty law enforcement and correctional personnel and tapped Vice Lord leadership phones.
Drummond says he learned that his cover had been blown the day of the killings, and that is why he ran.
I was afraid because I knew bad things happened. And I was afraid that because I was an informant, things would go wrong. Things would happen to me.
We did ask the district attorney about Drummond's claim that he was working as a confidential informant. The DA said he could not comment at this time. We should learn much more about the case against Drummond at a preliminary hearing that's scheduled for early September. Nick Barris, News Channel 5.
And guess what? We're going to talk more with Nick Barris right now. He's the one who made the contact with Autumn Drummond. He arranged for that prison interview. And by the way, he's going to be talking with him again tomorrow. Nick, good morning. Always a great day when you're joining us on the program. So tell us, please, after that interview, after he put this story out there that he didn't do these homicides and that he was just on the run and afraid after the homicides, did you find anything, any factual information in your investigative work that is corroborating the story he's telling?
You know, we're trying to track all of that down, and that's difficult because this is an active criminal case, and when you reach out to authorities, they tell you they're not going to comment on it. But right after, you know, hearing from him saying about being a confidential informant, I immediately reached out to the Lake County District Attorney, who he said he cut the deal with. And interesting here, the district attorney did not say, no, this is ridiculous, so we can't comment about the case, but he was not a confident. He didn't say that. The district attorney said, Nick, at this time, we cannot comment in any way about the case, and left it at that. Beyond that, we have not been able to confirm anything yet that Autumn Drummond has said, and so it's a big question of what do you believe?
Really is, Nick. We have a statement the DA issued publicly, reading it in part now. He said, while I understand there's public interest in the Autumn Drummond case, the rules are clear that our proof will be presented in the courtroom, not on social media or in the press. And he goes on to say, what I can confirm is that the matter continues to be active. under an active investigation, rather, and that we are working closely with all our law enforcement partners. The charges found and the names of the parties involved are reflected in the public record, and the next step in the process will occur in court. Nick, sure makes you wonder if he'll address this issue as to whether this guy was in fact a confidential informant or not in the courtroom. I understand if he wants to wait to do it there, because that is properly following the ethical rules that he has to follow as the DA, but it certainly has us in suspense. Tell me what you ultimately are hoping to get from Austin Drummond tomorrow when you're supposed to talk again.
Okay, if indeed that does happen, that's our hope, is to talk to him tomorrow. My understanding is that his public defender, who was appointed to represent him, is not happy about this, but apparently Austin Drummond does what he chooses. And what I'd like to do is get a little more detail from him. When we sought to get answers from him on, you know, more about how this happened, or who he thinks is responsible for the death, or what role this baby that you talked about played that ended up in the story. You know, we know that there was a baby that led to this investigation from the beginning that was found, you know, left in a car seat in Dyer County, and then that led to the bodies and all of that. We asked him initially during this first interview about that, and he wouldn't answer. So I hope to press him more along those lines to see if he'll share more details about this, and maybe more details about what exactly he felt. You know, I want him to explain more why he ran. Because here's the truth. If he was a confidential informant and his cover was blown, all right, you would think maybe at that point, all right, you run to authorities to get protection after the fact. Instead, he remained on the run for nearly a week. That doesn't seem to make sense. But again, he said he didn't find out about the murders until, you know, find out rather that he was blown covered until the day of the murders. Probably panicked and ran. So, yeah, those are the things we want to press him on.
Oh, I can't wait to see that interview. Nick, you always ask great questions. Tell us more, if you know, about the baby's status. Have you learned anything about her?
All right, the baby, as far as we know, again, was found unharmed in a car seat. We still are not clear about whoever it was that left the baby on this lawn at someone's home in Dyer County after the quadruple murders. A lot of people assume it might have been Austin Drummond. We don't know that for sure. The baby was taken into state custody and has since been placed with other family members. My understanding is the baby is fine. But, you know, gosh, a horrible situation for that child as she gets older and finds out what happened to her parents. We may learn more from the preliminary hearing. Now, keep in mind, that's going to be early next month. And at that time, I think we'll learn more maybe about the role the baby played. We'll also, I think, maybe hear from authorities who will give us a hint as to what it was that led them to believe early on that Austin Drummond was the killer. We don't know what that was at this point. That could be revealed at the preliminary hearing, where I'm sure this case will be bound over to the grand jury.
Yeah, great point, Nick. A lot still under seal with this one. Tell us more about Austin Drummond's girlfriend, if you would, please, and what the connection was to this family that was killed.
Again, we're sorting through this. Austin Drummond has been in and out of prison for some time, and he was in prison earlier this year. And our understanding is that he developed a relationship with this woman who became his girlfriend, who was working as a correctional officer at that facility. Now, he says that they did not start any romantic or serious relationship until he was released, but that they made contact, all right, while she was working there and he was incarcerated. They got together after the fact. She is now pregnant with his child, and she is the sister of one of the deceased. She is the sister-in-law of one of the deceased, and she is the daughter of one of the deceased. So, yeah, just a very convoluted attachment here. And you heard in the interview, you know, Austin says he would not kill all these people. They were family to him.
He did say that. Boy, it makes you scratch your head. We're going to be following this story closely here at Court TV and really appreciate your reporting. Nick Barris with Scripps News Nashville. Please come back, share with us more after you speak with this defendant again. Take care.
Glad to do it. Glad to do it.
And still ahead here on opening statements, we're going to continue our coverage of murder suspect Austin Drummond. We're going to break down his story with gang experts. That is coming up next. Plus,
how long were you in the hospital? A little over a week, I think. I think it was right at a week, or maybe a little over.
I don't remember anything besides waking up at grade.
All right, so the last thing you remember is leaving TJ's house.
Yes, ma'am. Frankly, I remember putting the keys in the ignition. That's about it.
10 years later, surviving victims of a deadly car crash go before the jury. Could they tip the scales of justice against the former trooper?
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back. Now let's turn the spotlight on defendant Austin Drummond and his affiliation with the Vice Lords gang. That we do know, that he's a member of the Chicago-based Vice Lords gang, which is known to have a presence in West Tennessee. Drummond confirmed that he joined the gang while he was behind bars. Here's Drummond during his first court appearance that was via Zoom.
Yes, sir. As long as it's not related to the facts of your case or anything that could infringe on your Fifth Amendment rights, I'm fine with that, sir.
I'm just wondering, is that enough time for me to ask for a quick speech right now? How's that?
Well, now that I've appointed you counsel, any motions that will be filed will go through your attorney, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay.
So let's talk about this. Is there any truth to what this guy was saying? Was the gang involved in the murders of those 4 people and that he did not do what he's accused of doing? Let's bring in our law enforcement expert guests now in the studio. So pleased to have with me gang expert J.P. Miller, and joining us remotely, private investigator with Black Ops Private Investigators, Manuel Gomez. Both of you gentlemen, also military veterans. Thank you both for your service. So I want to start with the first question to both of you, and that is, does this guy's story ring at all true? JP, what do you say, please?
I definitely think there are some red flags in the case, where he talks about specifically that there's Vice Lord wiretaps that he has been a part of. Typically in investigations with Title III investigations, which are wiretaps, that information isn't usually given to the public. That is between a prosecutor and the investigating agency. So that is alarming to me, for one. The other aspect, too, is the claims about the Vice Lords implying that they're responsible for this or insinuating it. The Vice Lords in Tennessee currently have a lot of active cases being prosecuted, and killing 4 people would bring in a lot of heat. So that's typically frowned upon, and that would have to have certain type of approval from leadership as well. So I just don't think it's really likely.
This is really helpful information. JP, thank you. Manuel Gomez, same question to you. Does the story ring at all true?
No, I don't believe anything Mr. Drummond says, and I can tell you why. One, the Vice Lords and the penitentiary are infamous for murder, narcotics, racketeering, and extortion. The fact that he opened his mouth and said that he was an informant on them, he just signed his death warrant, and he knows that. So he fears that more now than the death penalty that he's facing in court. He will lie and do anything. During the case of his interview, he has not once said, well, somebody else was there with me, pointed the finger. If somebody else was there, he would have said it. He has not given any indications other than saying, I'm not the one. And you know what? In serial killers like this, it is common practice for them to lie. Perfect example, Brian Kohlberger, Luigi Mangione, and Andrew McGann. All of them said they're not guilty, and all of them had overwhelming evidence proving they were. Austin Drummond, death is waiting.
Manuel, thank you for that. Let's dig in more about the Vice Lords gang. For anyone who's unfamiliar, give us a little crash course here, JP, if you would. How bad are these guys?
So they are nationwide. They're a traditional criminal street gang. They're documented in prisons across the United States, primarily focusing in the Midwest. There are some entities and different decks or subsets of Vice Lords throughout the Southeast, to include Tennessee, which has a large population of Vice Lords, and their different decks. We even have them in Georgia, but they are nationwide. They have been documented as being responsible for murder, racketeering offenses, theft, white-collar crime, you name it, these guys are involved in it. But once again, I think the targeting of civilians that aren't involved in necessarily their business wouldn't be the intended targets if they that would bring too much heat to the organization.
I was wondering about that. Thank you for that, JP. Manuel, dovetailing off of what JP just shared, so the person connected to these people who were murdered is Austin Drummond. There's no evidence of anyone else belonging to the Vice Lords gang connected to them. Do you find that all to be kind of a suspicious part of the story, that, oh, how fortuitous that they went after these people that he's saying he loved? How does that happen?
Well, I have to agree with my colleague. There is no reason to kill them for the Vice Lords. They have no connection with them. These were normal people. They were not dealing drugs. They were not dealing crystal meth. They were in any type of the infrastructure that the Vice Lords deal with. So there was no reason for them to have them killed. As my colleague said, I'm 100% agreeing with him. Again, he will lie and do anything, Austin Drummond, to make sure that he tries to, you know, get himself assigned to solitary confinement somewhere so he can live safe in a corner, because he knows this is all lined up, pointed at him. There's no way he's going to walk away from this. I just hope one thing, Julie.
Oh, yeah, no,
that
please,
they
go ahead.
do bail reform. I hope they reform the system. I hope they reform the bail, because, again, he was released on society on bail knowing he had attempted murder. We need to revamp our system. We need to look at that, and we need to say, hey, you can't let people out like this when they're already serving time and then let them make bail. This is insanity. The system dropped the ball, and these people should have never died.
100%. I couldn't agree with you more, Manuel. And I'm so glad you brought that up. I was saying to JP off camera before we got started, I said, I'm interested to talk to you about what you know, having dug into gangs and sharing your expertise about what gangs do. And I said, I know as a prosecutor, I know what I know, and that's, he shouldn't have been out. He should not have had a bond. And I started thinking, and JP, this is a great question for you. I started thinking, let's just say there's some truth to his story. What kind of struck me when he said he's working as a CI, I thought back to some of my days as a prosecutor where I would want somebody locked up because they were bad. And I would have a detective say to me quietly, hey, I need this guy out. He's working with me. Don't say anything. And I'm thinking, well, you babysit him. And if he harms anybody, this is going to be on you because I don't like this. And, well, but we got to have him work. We have something arranged. Okay. And that happens. Do you think that's at all a possibility here, JP?
I mean, I definitely think it's a possibility, especially considering the alleged crime that he's, you know, alleged committing and the new offense. But yes, he definitely could have been a reason for a lower bail and to have him out and working. So there could be some validity to that. But I'm not sure. You know, even the district attorney made a statement that said they didn't go one way or the other, but that could have been political, or that could have been a telltale sign of saying, we don't want to give a comment.
Yeah, you're referring to the DA not confirming whether he was a CI, not denying it. He just wouldn't address it. As you said, JP, it could be that he's following the rules as a prosecutor. You can't make extrajudicial statements outside of the courtroom. This could be very prejudicial information to offer. Either way, I could see why. So we may hear it on the record at the next hearing. Manuel, going back to a point you just made, you were saying you think maybe he's outing himself as a CI, if he even is, if, you know, he's saying it, to get better treatment in the prison. Tell me more, Manuel.
Well, I feel that he's saying that because, one, that'll automatically put him in some type of witness protection section of the jail. Like I said, it'll put him in isolation. It'll put him in an area where he's not in general population. He's already said he was a vice lord. He's already said that he's informed on them. That means he already knows by the laws of that gang, he is an enemy. They will kill him. And so he's doing anything humanly possible to try to isolate himself and also give that illusion that, you know what, maybe he is innocent. But the fact of the matter, Julie, is the evidence is overwhelming. There was no need for him to be there.
Right, Manuel. No, thank you for that. So let's just say, for the sake of our analysis, that he is a member of the gang. JP, if he is, in fact, and he's outing himself as a CI, I mean, how bad is this going to get for, like, I don't know what's worse. You've got the death penalty, and then you've also got, like what Manuel said it perfectly, you sign your death warrant by letting the gang know, like, you've turned on them. I don't understand what the end game is for him. What do you think?
I don't know, but what we have seen in like other cases, like witness intimidation can and does happen in some gang cases. Same with a snitch, so to speak, or a confidential informant getting outed by the organization. There are occasional times where nothing happens to that snitch. What we've seen in several trials across the United States, you know, everyone thinks that that is a 100% death on that person. That's not necessarily true, because once again, that could bring more heat onto the organization. That's not really what they want, because that disrupts the organization itself. Occasionally, though, that does happen. And what we typically see in more transnational and international gangs is that targeting of family members, children, wives, girlfriends. That's more common. Whereas in traditional gangs here in the United States, we typically see they're targeting that individual, if at all.
Yeah. Boy, great discussion with you experts. Thank you so much for this. I hope we can talk again. J.P. Miller, Manuel Gomez, thank you both kindly. We'll hit a break. When we come back, here's what's coming up on opening statements, returning to the speeding trooper homicide trial and the surviving victims who took the stand.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Now, for what's tipping the scales, emotional testimony from the survivors of that deadly car crash in Georgia. We're covering the speeding trooper homicide trial. Day 2 is set to get started up soon. Here's the defendant. This guy is the mayor of a small town in Georgia called Buchanan. But A.J. Scott used to be a Georgia state trooper before he was a mayor. And that was when the incident in question happened in 2015, when prosecutors say he was speeding and crashed into a car that was moving in the opposite direction. 4 people were inside. 2 teenage girls were killed, 16-year-old Isabella Chinchilla and 17-year-old Kylie Lindsay. The 2 men in the car suffered serious injuries, but thankfully they survived. And they both took the stand on Wednesday.
I was looking down at my phone, Dylan was just like, "Do you see headlights?" I'm like, I look up, nope, I don't see any headlights. Dylan makes that turn, sitting there, still looking at my phone, put my phone down, look to the right, see headlights. Next thing I know, I wake up at Grady.
Now, do you know how long you were in the hospital?
I think 5 or 6 days.
And what injuries did you receive?
Binary skull fracture, and I lost hearing out of this ear, and just a scar on my arm.
Oh my, it was a powerful, emotional day from those 2 victims who survived this crash. And we know the defense team is not conceding any fault here. They're not. They're saying that this accident was not the fault of defendant A.J. Scott, the trooper. They're saying that it was the car that was hit that was at fault for failing to yield and failing to signal. And we know that it was also really bad weather that night. But what's going to tug at the heartstrings of the jurors? I would think these surviving victims would. How about you? Let's bring in attorney Michael J. Brown and attorney John Phillips and talk about that. Michael, I want your reaction first. These victims, how powerful do you think this testimony will be in the overall picture?
Julie, you know, when you have just a fatality, and I hate saying just a fatality, you don't have those people, unfortunately, coming in and testifying. But here you have 2 individuals who lost their lives, and now you have 2 who still are alive. And that's powerful in the sense that they can actually walk into that courtroom and they can tell their story to a jury, and it really humanizes the entire incident, and it humanizes the victims, because here they are in the flesh talking about their experiences. So yeah, I do think it has that emotional aspect to it, even though a jury is instructed to disregard that portion of it in terms of the emotion. It certainly has a significant impact on the jury.
Most definitely. Michael, thank you for that. I have a clip for you both. This is one of their friends talking about the time of the incident, what it was like when he went looking for those friends and he couldn't reach them.
Who informed us that? Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Take your time.
He told us that 2 people had passed away. He didn't give names.
Boy, that's hard. John Phillips, when a young person has someone else young in their life that dies, I mean, ooh, it's something else. Your thoughts on the overall picture with these 4 young people?
The toughest cases in the country are federal civil rights cases where you're putting the police on trial. The next line of those are cases like this where, you know, you're going to have officers testify that you know, they were just trying to do their job and something happened. And, you know, it's a tough case, and jurors tend not to want to prosecute, you know, convict, or even hold civilly accountable, you know, police. Speaking of, I can hear one. I think somebody may have knocked out our power, hitting a power pole, so I'm sitting in the dark.
No.
You know, here we go. It's crazy Thursday.
Yeah, no, it is, John. Hopefully everybody is okay. Yeah, you're right. It's hard. You make a great point, John, when you have somebody who served and, you know, wore the badge, carried the gun, was there to serve and protect, and then they're on the other side of the law. I was surprised, maybe it's just me, Michael J. Brown, I'd love to know what you think, surprised how after something like this, when you have an event like that, whether you caused it or not, but just your name's attached to it, for A.J. Scott, I was surprised that he was able to go on and do as well as he did, becoming a mayor after this incident. Your thoughts, Michael, on how that status as the mayor, how that might affect things for this jury?
Well, I think that says a lot about the defendant, that he went on and furthered his career and did what he had to do, and politically was elected to be mayor of a town. And quite frankly, if he's going to take the stand, and I don't know if he will, you know, that gives him some additional credibility in the sense that now he's the elected mayor of a town. So that will be favorable for him. I don't know what else comes of this trial. I know the focus is going to be on the causation and whether or not the victim's car is at fault. And I think that's going to be a very significant issue in this type of scenario.
Right, Michael, you're absolutely right. John Phillips, quickly here, you got me thinking, let's just say for the sake of our analysis, there is a criminal conviction here for A.J. Scott. Does that open up liability for the state police for civil actions?
It does. You know, you got stacking levels of immunities, state law immunity, you know, constitutional immunity, but we're one of the only law firms in Florida, particularly in Jacksonville, that handle cases like this. A lot of the advertising guys and gals don't want to take on police, but this is a negligence action, you know, with dire consequences, wrongful death. And, you know, you don't necessarily need the conviction, but it would help.
Excellent insight from you both. As always, we'll see you next Thursday. John Phillips, Michael J. Brown, thank you so much for being on Opening Statement. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.